So, ready for Matthew chapter 6, starting with verse 25, the Sermon on the Mount. One of the aspects of the Sermon on the Mount is that very often throughout the sermon, Jesus said, "You have heard it said," and then he would say something either from the Old Testament law or from the tradition of the rabbis, and then he would say, "But I tell you," and he would kind of somehow, if my thinking is, he most often turns that upside down and puts it on its head. Sometimes he just, just there are a few clicks. Well, pretty much everything in the Sermon on the Mount is practical. It touches our lives and timeless. We don't trade in denarii anymore unless you're in the Heshemite kingdom of Jordan. We don't get a denarius for a day's labor, but the principles are all, pick a century, they work. That's kind of the nature of principle, but the Sermon on the Mount is some of the most practical teachings about how life works and how to find satisfaction in life from fulfilling our relationship with God. There are some other things about it that have to do with which side of the cross was Jesus teaching from. I'm not going to get into that. Maybe later. And who knows? Maybe not at all. But what we're going to look at today, I can tell you, I have personal experience with. And this pushes my buttons. So, therefore, I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more important than food, and the body more important than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Who of you, by worrying, can add a single hour to his life? And why do you worry about clothes? See how the lilies of the field grow? They do not labor or spin, yet I tell you that not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, will he not much more clothe you, O you of little faith? So do not worry, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? For the pagans run after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. Yikes. Hi, I'm Steve, and I'm recovering from worry. Actually, I'm not very far along in my recovery. It's been 4 hours since I last worried. I am a worrywart. I'd like to blame somebody for that. I guess I would blame my parents, both my mom and my dad. My mom was a habitual and constant worrier until she lost her mind to Alzheimer's. Then I I think she was in a constant state of anxiety, but it was different than the worry previously in her life. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of neurology and whatever else in that, but my dad, I didn't find this out until the last probably decade of his life, suffered from social anxiety and generalized anxiety. I never knew that. I just knew what I could see was my dad. He pressed on. He just kept pumping. He kept going. I had no idea that he felt anxiety. Well, I don't think anxiety is hereditary. Although I will say, there's some things about anxiety that are both nature and nurture, in that some people's brains are wired in such a way that they are more susceptible to worry than others are. I can't explain it away, and I can talk about it as though I know more about it than I actually do, but there are studies that affirm there are some people who, because of their wiring and their neurochemistry, are much more prone to worry than others are. You may have seen this in families where you have one or two people in the family, kids, that are worriers, and another one or two kids are like, whatever. And so I don't worry. There's no reason to. I was never that guy. I have worried as long as I can remember. And yes, I think picking up on my mother's worry, which was mainly about finances, she believed that we could never know if we're going to have enough this week. She said it. I mean, there were times when, and she would, I'm not bashing Mom, but just to tell you, maybe you've had something similar to this, but we would often pray that God would provide so we'd have enough for that week. And God did. There were some lean weeks, but I've never missed a meal. I wish my mom could have believed more thoroughly and practically in God's provision. But, that's just how it goes. I kind of picked that up. Now, it's interesting because I don't think my youngest brother picked it up. I don't think he lives in this scarcity mentality. As a matter of fact, he has a very well-adjusted and balanced view of income and outgo. He's a lot smarter than me. Well, okay, I'm beating around the bush because I just really hate to admit I worry. And I worry, like my mom, a lot about money. I was talking with a friend today, and I realized financially, Debbie and I are much closer now than ever, well, in the last probably 40 years, to how life was for us when we first got married in 1974. Yeah, you do the math. Yes, we're coming up on 50 years on May 31st. Our income has reduced. God is providing. He is giving us all that we need. It's not like we're going with, I'm not missing any meals. And there are aspects of my life that have never been richer. It's not like, woe's me, I don't know if we're going to make it this month. No, it's not like that. And yet I worry. Corrie ten Boom, boy, if you come across any of Corrie ten Boom's books, you should read them. They're full of nuggets. I mean, gold nuggets of truth. And one of the things that she talks about is how worry steals from today. And it does. So my worry is not about today. Really. It's not about this moment. All my worries are about things yet to come in the future. Jesus addresses that. Therefore, I tell you, we got to go back to the therefore. Because, and I don't remember what preacher I stole this from. But when you read the word therefore, you really ought to stop and see what it's there for. Well, what just preceded this? Well, it's Jesus talking about treasure, what true treasure is, and where it's to be stored. And the fact that you cannot serve both God and money. You're going to love one and hate the other. You cannot serve both God and money. That's the last sentence. Okay. Because our true riches are not here anyway, and our perspective about money and things has to be seen through the lens of God's provision and His economy. Okay. Therefore, I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Now, those are pretty basic concerns. I'm worried for my life. Really? Like somebody could murder me. Not really. But, is there going to be enough money to buy the clothes I need? Are we going to be able to have the food we want? And in Jesus' day, we forget this, but in Jesus' day, you bought today what you will eat today. There was obviously no refrigeration. There were no preservatives in their foods at all, which, I kind of have this idea that if we could reduce the number of preservatives, it would be much better for us physically. But anyway, okay. And so what I'm going to have today comes down to what can I buy today, or what can I get today? Somehow, how can I procure food for today and drink for the day? And by the way, they had wells, and especially near Jerusalem, water was not a desert issue, but clean water, that was hard. There wasn't much clean water. So you had to worry about that. Well, no, Jesus says you don't have to worry about it. You can have some concern and you can make plans, but it doesn't do you any good to worry about it. Then he says, if you need evidence, look around you. Is not life more important than food, and the body more important than clothes? Come on. Look at the birds of the air. They don't sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. And then he goes on to say, and are you not much more valuable than they? And that, of course, is a rhetorical question because the answer is a resounding absolutely. And then he says, who of you by worrying can add a single hour to his life? My worry doesn't add anything into my life, but it takes away. Okay, so obviously we didn't get through. Come back to this. I've already blown way past my time limit. So I'm going to shut her down, and I'll see you next time on So Care with Stevie Boy.